Sorry, there we go. We've got some new technology that we're working on here. We're using Microsoft Teams to put this small business town hall out to everybody at home via YouTube. The purpose of this meeting is to find ways to help small businesses navigate through the COVID-19 storm that we're all facing right now. We've got a number of business leaders today online. Also, I'm joined with by Councillor Joe Andrews, who is the chair of the board of the BDAC, our business development committee. Also, we have our federal MP, Kyle Seaback, online with us today. Joe, I'm going to throw it over to you to give some bios of those who are participating in today's meeting.
Great, thank you very much, Your Worship, and it really is a pleasure to be here this afternoon wearing a variety of hats, as the Mayor has indicated, Councillor with the Town of Orangeville, also Chair of BDAC, and also Principal of the Humber College Orangeville campus. And so we may at some point talk a little bit about the impact to the post-secondary side and how students have transferred over to an online learning forum. I do want to thank Mayor Brown for the opportunity of facilitating and also putting this together as quickly as we have been able to do so. And I also want to commend the town staff for being able to do so with, again, lots of pressures that many of us are all facing at this time with the COVID-19 pandemic. I do want to also share that through consultation with the EDC, which is the Economic Development Office, this conversation really was developed almost about 10 days ago, where already business leaders of the community had stepped forward and were concerned of what they were hearing. And I think that with the panelists that I'll be introducing in just a moment, today's virtual town hall is such that we're going to try and provide as many answers as we can from the experts that we have. We're not necessarily going to be able to provide all the answers in the limited time that we have, but we're going to do our best. And I think with the expertise that we have around the table, they'll be able to highlight a variety of different information that many of you are asking, including the definition of essential services, and we do have some updated information for you. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to introduce our panelists, and what they will do is they will end up acknowledging their presence here. Some are on site, some are off site because of technology. And again, we're most appreciative of the time that they are spending this afternoon. Our first panelist is Kyle Seaback, our federal member of parliament, has lived and raised his children in Dufferin-Caledon for the last 10 years. He is the principal of Seaback Mediation, a GTA-based mediation firm. From 2000 to 2011, Kyle was a civil litigation lawyer. In 2011, he was elected to the House of Commons as a Conservative member of Parliament. Kyle is also a former member of the Canadian national swim team. In his professional and political career, he has been an outspoken voice of freedom of speech and strong democratic institutions. While a member of Parliament, he has worked to help pass the Reform Act, a critical piece of legislation that enhances the independence of members of Parliament. As MP for Dufferin-Caledon, he will continue to work to increase the independence of members of Parliament so that they can fully represent their constituents. In his spare time, Kyle can be found in the hockey arena, where he's coached Orangeville minor hockey since 2010. So, Mr. Seaback, welcome, and you can certainly say hi to our viewers this afternoon. Okay. We're going to go through all the panelists, but I just wanted you to say hello.
Okay, thanks. Happy to be here.
Great. Our next panelist is Joe Samet. Joe has been a mortgage broker for 26 years and is one of the founders of Mortgage Architects Canada. He's lived in Mono with his wife Andrea for 11 years on the family's hobby farm. Joe owns commercial property in Orangeville, including the building on Broadway that houses his mortgage brokerage. Joe is currently the president of the Orangeville BIA, and when not working, enjoys promoting downtown Orangeville to friends, family, and associates. Joe, if you can say hello, that would be great. I know that he's present, but we'll move on.
I'm here. My microphone's off. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Great to have you here this afternoon. Our next panelist is Louis Sappi, local commercial and residential landlord. He graduated with an MBA from the Schulich School of Business in 1986, obtained his Chartered Professional Accounting designation in 1985. He is the founder and CEO of HS and Partners, a large Mississauga-based CPA firm specializing in audit, tax, accounting, and business and advisory services. Aside from the CPA firm, Lewis has been very engaged in other business ventures, including assisting companies in raising capital and providing both strategic and tactical advice, investment banking projects, mergers and acquisitions, corporate finance, real estate, and management consulting. He has been both entrepreneurial and supporting the members of our communities, built and sold numerous business interests, participating in many charitable endeavors, authoring numerous articles and books, and speaking at various events and conferences over the years. He also has sat on numerous boards in the private, public, and charitable sectors, and he's also a proud member of the World Presidents Organization, known as the WPO. So Lewis, welcome, and you can say hi to our viewers.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Next panelist is Marlene Black, who is owner of Orangeville Insurance Services Limited, which has served the surrounding community since 1932. Marlene has been involved with Orangeville Insurance for over 50 years. Orangeville Insurance Services Limited values the long-standing client relationships built in the community. Hard work, dedication, and a passion for customer service excellence are all the ingredients that have helped Orangeville Insurance create a recipe for business longevity and strength. So Marlene, welcome, and nice to have you aboard. If you can say hello to our viewers. I think your microphone is on mute. We'll move on to our next panelist and we'll get Marlene back online here. Rodney Huff, the mayor, calls him Mr. Downtown Orangeville. No one knows the downtown business core like Rodney. Rodney is the former president of the Orangeville BIA. He has the pleasure of owning his own businesses for 33 years. He is a small business owner, entrepreneur, business coach, educator, and real estate investor. Success to him is 1,000 details, an organized effort in attracting like-minded people. Being successful includes fostering a proven business model and cultivating excellent business practices that embrace a complete follow-through on commitments. He subscribes his philosophy that greatness or great companies plan to be great. He is focused and works with small business owners that would like to help in their entrepreneurial journey from startup growing to the next level, preparing businesses to sell. So Rodney, you can say hello to our viewers.
Hi, glad I'm here. Thank you for inviting me.
And last is Allison Shield, the general manager of the Orangeville BIA and Farmers Market. Allison's strength is in building relationships and fostering small independent business. As a strong proponent of living local, Allison encourages local residents to embrace small town living, moving to the area in 2001 and working for the Orangeville BIA since 2009. Allison has planted deep roots in Dufferin County. Besides her membership support and administrative duties with the BIA, Allison also organizes and manages large community events, including the weekly Orangeville Farmers Market, the bi-weekly Winter Market, Great Taste Fashion Gala, the Taste of Orangeville Harvest Celebration Moonlight Magic, that is, and is a director of the Orangeville Blues and Jazz Festival Board of Directors. Allison studied political science at York University and human resources at Ryerson University. Allison, if you'd be so kind to say hello to our viewers this afternoon.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for having me.
All right, Mayor Brown, I'd like you to, of course, move on with the rest of our format, and we'll certainly engage in a variety of different opportunities to pose questions to our panelists.
Thank you, Joe. I wanted to talk about our Monday council meeting here in the town of Orangeville. Town council agreed to assist our residents and small businesses, all businesses in Orangeville, by waiving penalties and interest on property taxes, water, and hydro bills. So those who are in difficult circumstances will not be penalized if they're not able to make payments on all of those items. We've also made our public transit system free. A couple of reasons for that. One, by boarding the buses at the rear door would remove some of the interaction for our drivers. Also, we need to get people around town, and this is a way to help our residents get out to make their essential purchases if they do not have transportation other than public transit. On the provincial, with respect to Dufferin County, both Orangeville at orangeville.ca and Dufferin County at dufferincounty.ca have excellent website information regarding COVID-19, including health items as well as the incentives that are being offered for both municipalities. As we know, Premier Ford announced a package of $304 million last week. That money went to specifically to healthcare. And around the time we're going to end our meeting today, the Minister of Finance for the province is going to be giving an economic statement. So I would imagine there might be some additional assistance or stimulus in that statement. It was interesting last night that the United States announced a huge stimulus package was approved, $2 trillion. Doing the math on that's $6,000 per man, woman, and child in the United States. Reading through the information, though, we find that there was $850 billion in loans, $250 billion in EI. So that's not new money. I would think that the $250 billion was probably out of EI funds that the government had. So there is some additional new money. I think all of the details will be coming into play in the next couple of days. So with that recap, I just wanted to start off with our Member of Parliament, Mr. Seaback. So Kyle, I wonder if you can give us a recap of the federal government, what the federal government is proposing for small business. We're all wondering what the country can afford. Mr. Trudeau has stated that the country is in excellent financial shape in comparison to many other countries. Is that true? And can the country support a larger stimulus package than what has been offered? My concern, and that of many others, is the speed with which the financial assistance can get into the hands of Canadians. We're hoping you can shed some light on that mechanism and what your thoughts are about how the federal government has been performing to this point. Mr. Seaback.
Thanks, Sandy. So there's a whole lot of things that the federal government has announced recently. Last night, there was a big piece of legislation passed with $82 billion worth of funding that's going to go out to help support Canadians. In general, I do have the sense that the government is moving a little too slowly on these things, and I wish they would be moving faster, both with respect to a whole bunch of things. The government's recently announced that now people coming into Canada will be mandatorily quarantined for 14 days. I think they were a little slow on that. I wish they would have had some mandatory quarantine procedures in place a little bit earlier. In the last 3 weeks, I think 1 million Canadians have returned from abroad with virtually no screening. And I think that was a big, I think the federal government dropped the ball on that. With respect to the funding that was announced last night, I'm going to start with that because it's the biggest change from what's happened. So we now have a new Canada Emergency Response Benefit. That's been announced tonight. You're going to be able to access this through your My CRA account, which a lot of us have through our bank accounts. I know I do. I can log into my CRA account by going into my financial, going to the CRA website and logging in through my financial institution. So you can also access it through My Service Canada. So here's what this is going to do for individuals, because I'm going to start there. It's going to provide a taxable benefit of $2,000 a month for 4 months. Now, this is basically going to be for anyone that has earned up to $5,000 or more of income in the past year. You are going to be eligible. This is a big change from the EI provisions that the government announced earlier on, which was going to allow you to qualify for EI if you had if you're self-quarantining or you were taking care of someone. So this is going to be for everyone. So if you are a sole proprietor and you've earned up to $5,000 worth of income in the last 12 months, you're going to be able to qualify for this benefit. And I know I've had a lot of emails and telephone calls from people who have small businesses, whether they're massage therapists or, various professions, they will qualify for this. Now, how you qualify is not 100% set up by the government yet. What I'm being told, and remember this was just passed last night, is that this will be available in the first week of April. Again, I know it's moving slowly and people are concerned, but that money is going to be there. You're going to be able to apply for it in the first week of April. So that's something that is going to be almost universally applied. The only areas that I see we have some challenges with that are going to be perhaps students who have just graduated and therefore may not have earned $5,000 worth of income in the last 12 months. So those people are maybe falling through the gap on this, and I think the government is going to have to take a look at how they're going to address the people that are going to have those kinds of concerns. But by and large, I think this is going to be a very good measure for Canadians, and I commend the government for doing that. With respect to small business, there have been a few things that have been announced. I'm not convinced, quite frankly, that they are going to be significant enough for small business. So the first thing that we've talked about with small business is that they are going to be eligible for a wage subsidy for a period of 3 months. The subsidy will be equal to 10% of remuneration paid during that period, up to a maximum of $1,375 per employee and $25,000 per employer. I think the wage subsidy should be higher because 10% is not going to be enough for a lot of small businesses. So I'm really hoping that the government is going to make some movement on that. The other thing they're doing is there's flexibility on filing your taxes for businesses. So all businesses can defer until after August 31st the payment of any income tax amounts that become owing on or after today and before September of 2020. So businesses, you can hold on to some of those cash because most businesses make those payments in quarterly installments. So I think that's gonna help business out a little bit as well. On the other stuff, I want to briefly sort of talk about for individuals as well. The tax filing date has been deferred until June 1st. That's great for people that maybe owe money on their taxes, but I would encourage everyone who is expecting any kind of a tax refund, they should be getting their taxes in as soon as possible because, again, that's going to allow you to have some money that comes back into your bank account. All interest and penalties will be waived for people who are filing their taxes late, even if they owe some money. So I think those are some good steps as well. I'm just trying to go through all my notes because there's a significant amount. One other thing I do want to talk about is that the government's also bringing in some more supports for individuals, a one-time special payment by early March of 2020 through the goods and services tax credit. This will double the maximum annual goods and services tax credit amounts for the 2019-2020 benefit year. This will be about $400 for individuals, $600 for couples. And they're also going to increase the Canadian child care benefit, the Canada Child Benefit amounts. So that's going to increase by a maximum of $300 per child. So the overall increase for families receiving the CCB will be approximately $550 on average. So the government is certainly taking some steps, and I'm looking through my notes again. There's going to be a 6-month interest-free moratorium on repayment of Canada student loans for individuals, and also reducing the required minimum withdrawals from RRIFs by 25% for 2020. So there's a whole host of financial supports that are being offered by the government right now. I'm posting all of these on my website as well, kyleseback.ca, including links on how you can apply for the various benefits. If anyone's having a challenge applying for these benefits, please get in touch with my office, and email is certainly the fastest way that we respond, and that is kyle.seback@parl.gc.ca. That's a quick summary of everything that we've got right now, Sandy, and I again stress, I think we need more support for small business. I've heard and received lots of calls from small business, certainly heard from CFIB as well. The longer we can keep people employed, the better we're going to do to survive any downturn that's coming as a result of this.
Very good. Thank you, Kyle. I'm just wondering if any of our panelists here have a question for Mr. Seback. Seeing none, we will move along. So our next speaker is Marlene Black. As per the introduction, Marlene is the owner of Orangeville Insurance. Welcome, Marlene. Wondering if you could give us an overview of what the insurance industry is doing for small business during this crisis. And hopefully we've got some questions from our panelists for you as well. So Marlene, please.
Glad to be with you here, Sandy.
Mhm.
I own the brokerage on Mill Street. Been there since 1932 as the second oldest brokerage in downtown Orangeville. And I feel at this moment that the benefit of what we're seeing here with this crisis is we as independent brokers for the province of Ontario are there for our clients, and we represent several of the large companies that will be in benefits here as far as what I'm going to talk about the consequences of things that they are benefiting helping us with as far as temporarily suspending policy terminations for non-payment of premiums, temporarily suspending NSF fees, temporarily and working with customers who are currently facing policy terminations in order to defer payments as appropriate. We presently don't know the nature and extent of the claims that may be brought forth in the future, directly or indirectly resulting from this pandemic. Unfortunately, there's not one simple or specific answer to such a broad and complex question. Standard business interruption insurance for commercial and farm operations is triggered as a result of physical loss or damage suffered to the insured's premises that is caused by a peril covered by the underlying property insurance policy. That means that business interruption due to closure, either by public authorities or voluntary, supply chain or contingent losses or lack of market or contamination or illness are not perils insured under a contract of business interruption. And the commercial general liability and the personal and premises liability provide an obligation to defend and indemnity the insured for claims of bodily injury or property damage based on negligence. And the obligation to defend may be a separate and distinct obligation from that to indemnify. Each and every claim brought forth will need to be evaluated on its own individual merits and facts, and within the context of the existing common law and the broadest interpretation of the insurance contract wording. And we will follow the property and casualty insurance industry guidance and the collective and coordinated response by our peers, regulatory and statutory guidance as may be issued by public authorities, and make the best decisions to the benefit of our members individually and collectively. Now, my office on Mill Street, as an example of the independent brokers here in town, is working off-site. Our doors are locked because of the issues that, even though we are able to remain open as one of the statistics that's given, but to protect my staff and our clients that are coming towards us, we have the doors locked, but we are working diligently to help individuals that call us or contact us by technology. And the companies, we're working very closely with the as an independent broker with the companies that we represent to monitor the COVID-19 situation. And they are making informal decisions based on the guidance and recommendation as laid out by the government and health authorities. And just as I left the office to come over here, I had an email from the Canadian Underwriter, which is giving us a little bit more up-to-date circumstances on business interruption and so on from our past experience of very serious losses like the water damage claims we had 3 years ago. And companies remain committed to support us as brokers and their customers through this challenging period and maintain a flexible position. And I think to the benefit of the independent broker, we have two legislative bodies that are working with us, the IBAO, which is the Insurance Brokers Association of Ontario, which is a nonprofit or association. We ensure our members' interests and represented to the government, industry, stakeholders, and with provincial and national policy. And they have 13,000 members across Ontario, and we depend on the IBAO to represent us with government matters. And also the Registered Insurance Brokers of Ontario, we call REBO, is the self-regulatory body of insurance brokers who regulates our licensing to make sure that we're doing our job as professionals and conducting ourselves with ethical conduct and looking after our financial obligations to all the independent general insurance brokers in Ontario. I represent several of the big insurers, which are certainly looking at each of these matters right now, and keeping us abreast with the latest news of what's going on. I think, Kyle, you gave us a lot of information of what the government is planning to do to help with the losses that we're seeing, and I think it will benefit us greatly to help with the jobs that we're to do as independent brokers. And of course, Orangeville Insurance motto has always been serving, supporting, and protecting our community since 1932. And I intend to do that with my staff of 10. And glad to be here today, and we'll answer any question that you might have.
Thank you, Marlene. So your brokerage is it's business as usual in terms of claims. The large insurance companies are all operating. So if somebody does have a property loss claim of some nature, these things are all still being processed in regular time. Is that correct? You're muted again there, Marlene. Sorry.
Good now? Here we are.
Yeah,
business as usual. Yeah, business as usual. My staff is working in rotation. We're there for whatever circumstance we may have to encounter.
Very good. Any other questions, Marlene, from any panelists?
I do have a quick question, Sandy, please.
Yes.
Joe Salmon here.
Go right ahead, Joe.
Just curious, for businesses that are currently vacated, empty due to the COVID-19 pandemic, are they insured under the same terms and conditions as they normally would be if they were occupied regularly?
There we go. Can I hear you now? I can't hear that. I don't know what's going on here. Microphone's on. Mm-hmm. Never touched anything.
We can hear her now, Andrea.
Okay. Joe, was that the question for me?
Yes, it was.
Okay, can you repeat that for me?
What I was asking was for businesses or business interruption where businesses are now closed due to having to vacate due to the COVID-19 pandemic, are the properties still insured under the same terms and conditions as they would have been if the property were regularly occupied under due course of doing business?
Business interruption is not responding to this virus type loss at the moment.
I'm referring more to property and casualty and things like that that would be covered under a regular insurance policy for loss and peril due to the property. If it's vacant, are there concessions being made for the vacancies?
We have not made any, because it's just massive. We've not made any changes to any policies. We have not. No, we have not. That's a good question.
All right, thank you.
No,
Joe or Marlene, I think the question is, in most commercial leases, especially for restaurants, there's a 30-day clause that speaks if they're not open for 30 days. Is there a chance the insurance company is going to extend that past the 30-day mark?
I would be positive they would, Rodney. I would be positive they would.
Any other questions, insurance related?
Yeah, I do have a question, and this is through some of the members, Marlene, of the through the BDAC. And again, maybe they're looking at it not only from a business operations perspective, but also their own personal insurance coverage. Has there been any discussion regarding deferral and or late payments, which will not be in fact penalized?
Definitely. Every company has a different prospect on that, but every company is forgiving these things. I have all of my major carriers are brought in different situations, but they're all delay payments up to 1 month without penalty and more leniencies with NSF and reinstatement fees and so on. So if you have a situation where you want me to follow up on that as a client coming to me as their independent broker, we approach each insurance company separately and help you out with whatever it is. But I'm sure every insurer out there is making concessions for all these things.
Very good. Any other questions, panelists? Okay, thank you, Marlene.
Okay.
We're going to move along here. Louis Sappi. Louis, you're a chartered accountant. Not only do you prepare financial statements and tax returns with your colleagues at your company, you're also a trusted advisor to many businesses and families. What are your 4 major concerns in this crisis for businesses, and what are some of the suggestions that businesses can do to stay solvent in this very difficult time? Louis.
Thank you for the question, Sandy. I guess it's safe to say that we're living through extraordinary and very turbulent times. And very few people, no government, no business leaders really know how to deal with this comprehensively. So when you're dealing with times of adversity, you need to be as nimble as possible. And my concern is that there's an awful lot of business that have not been able to manage their affairs to be nimble, financially nimble. So I see an awful lot of insolvencies coming forth, both small business and the resulting families and consumer insolvencies in the next 12 to 18 months. I see a lack of liquidity that's going to slow the economy down. The recovery is going to be much slower than I think a lot of people expect. When I say liquidity, I mean access to capital, whether it's equity or it's debt financing. I believe our banks, who are trying to be helpful right now, once they start experiencing the loan losses that are showing up on their books in the next 12 months or so, they're going to in fact be tightening up lending credit facilities. So it'll be harder for an individual's small business to basically get operating lines and loans. As it is right now, banks have been nothing more than glorified mortgage lenders. When you go to a bank as a small business person for an operating line, they're not looking at cash flow lending, they're looking at how much equity you have in your house for the most part. So that's going to be a challenge going forward. So as I say, when we have those type of issues coming forward, you as an individual, and I'm speaking now to this business community, small to medium size, have to be as nimble as possible. Cash will truly be king right now. If you're asset rich and cash poor, you're going to need to revise that somehow, whatever it takes. You have to start looking at the way you manage a business. I think this is a phenomenal opportunity, if you want to look at this silver lining in this dark cloud, to how to basically rework the way you manage your affairs going forward. Sales are not meaningful unless you produce profits. Profits are not meaningful unless you turn those into cash. And cash in the company is not meaningful unless you send it out as much as possible to the family. And this is what's happened. A lot of small businesses not produced enough cash or have not focused on that methodology to give family protections, to build up family reserves for the next 3 to 4 months. Basic Economics 101 on financial planning has always said you need at least 3 months of reserves to survive situations just like this. And yet in the paper this morning, they're saying over 20% of Canadians will not be able to have enough money within the next 30 days. That's something that we all need to learn from and really revise the way you manage your business affairs. When I advise my clients, it's all about, going back to the basics. What's the whole point of a business? The whole point of a business is to feed your family and to create family wealth, not just business wealth. And you need to be able to conduct yourselves accordingly. Sandy, would you like me to go on about the suggestions that you were? So one of the suggestions I was mentioning is, again, liquidity. You need to start looking at your assets. And again, I know many, many friends and business peers who are asset rich, cash poor. You're going to have to turn that around, as I said, because there will be a situation in the next 12 to 18 months where you will need that cash, whether to deal with the lenders and or to take advantage of some tremendous opportunities. I mean, very, very truly here, for those of us who have always conducted ourselves in appropriate business and financial planning, these are, and I hate to say it, and I don't want to sound silly about it, these are phenomenally opportunistic times. Whether it's in the markets buying stocks at a cheap bargain, or whether it's now taking advantage of opportunities to help service your client base, etc. These are opportunistic times if you're positioned for it. Now, to be properly positioned for it, you need to start planning. You need to have, you don't need to get into deeply complicated business plans, but you do need to start having a business plan, and you do need to start managing your cash flows. If there's one thing I've learned, many business forget the whole concept of what true managing a business is. It's not looking at your financial statements from last year and that's all. It's actually looking at your cash flow projections. There's a reason why when you're driving a vehicle, your windshield is 50 times bigger than your rear view mirror. It's because you need to see where you're going. Cash flow projections tell you where you're going. Financial statements is the rear view mirror. Banks at this point in time are now assessing every single one of the business owners as their capability of managing. It's one thing to manage when the sun is shining. It's another thing to be capable business leaders and managers when the proverbial fecal matter hits that rotating device. And this is where the banks are looking at now. It's all about management. I'm fond of using this analogy because I'm a car buff. If I'm sitting in a Ferrari and I'm going to race the gentleman next to me in a Volkswagen Bug, but that gentleman happens to be Mario Andretti, my money's on Mario and that Volkswagen Bug. It's all about management and leadership right now. So, having said that, if you have that unrelenting need to succeed, if you have a focus now on planning and managing of your cash flows, remember, it's not just about sales, it's not just about profits, it's about turning profits into cash, profits sitting in inventories, profits sitting in machinery that's doing nothing is useless. It needs to be turned into cash for you to be nimble. You want to also look at your employees. You want to keep your employees, especially the good ones. Again, times of adversity brings out the best of the worst in people. Just like the banks are assessing you, you need to assess your team. Who's there for you when you need it? Maintaining good proactive relationships with your lenders. You need to be proactive. Lenders hate hearing from us or from business people when there's already a problem. They want to hear ahead of time, and cash flow projections really provides tremendous confidence that they will have in you. Take advantage of government assistance, take advantage of everything, renegotiate expenses, renegotiate with all your suppliers. That's the key right now. I could go on for hours, but at the risk of hogging, I'm going back to Sandy.
I think that was valuable information, Louis. It's it's a little harsh, but we're in a harsh reality right now. So thank you for providing some truth to our local business community. But some of the things that Louis mentioned there, there are some businesses right now that have no cash flow, they're closed. So things like negotiating with your vendors, negotiating with your landlords, things that Louis had mentioned are really important to try and get through this storm that we're facing right now. Okay, so moving along, well, wait a minute. Before we move along, any questions from our panelists here of Lewis, who's a CA and an MBA and knows a lot about business? Anything? No, seeing none, we'll move on to Rodney Huff. So, Rodney, you've got a great deal of experience, particularly in the restaurant industry. You've been behind a number of very successful ventures here in town. Can you put your small business advisor hat on and speak to that sector of the economy? They've been mandated to close except for takeout. What are the, some of the things that restaurants can do to weather this storm? Rodney.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, I've written down that the top things I'm going to be speaking about the rear view mirror, as Lewis just alluded to, and it's from your profit and loss. So labor cost in the restaurant's the number one cost. Kyle's been speaking about subsidies that are going on. From a restaurant owner perspective, we need to be finding out as much as we can on the day-by-day shift and applying for it early. I know that the subsidy for 10% of remuneration Kyle spoke about for the restaurant owners, there's going to be a cap on that per employee and per business, but you need to fill out for everything of that. So the labor costing is to get as much subsidy in as you can and get in the front of the line. So the quicker you move on it, the better it's going to be. Number two is going to be our food costing and our suppliers. My suggestion is that you put yourself a current inventory together, look at what you have in stock and look at what you're going to need in stock for the reopening, and start negotiating with your suppliers now about how you can take the first 30 days and defer maybe 50% of that accounts payable and then get it spread out starting in June, July, and August, so that you can get your inventory levels back up when we are ready to reopen. From a beverage cost, it's going to be a bit more difficult to do that with suppliers because the majority comes through the beer store or LCBO. But we've got a lot of amazing independent microbrewers, some coffee suppliers. We've got some local wine merchants that it might be a way for you to be able to do the same thing. And when you're getting going, do your cash flow statements out, get your budgeting going, and then try to defer some of your original purchases that you're going to be making so that you can get them into June, July, August, and closer towards December of 2020. The next item on our list, so number 4 in our expenses is from a small business perspective, is our rents. We're hearing that there's going to be some government support or something that's speculative where they're going to be helping small business owners in regards to the rents. And if that's not coming down, you need to talk to landlords. And again, it's going to be deferring April's rent because we're completely closed right now, and then possibly taking May and June rents and then having one of two options that you could approach your landlord with. You could take those rents and get them added on to the back end of the rent. So if you had 4 years left on your lease, you would end up having 4 years and 2 months left on your lease. So you would take that April payment and the 50% of May and the 50% of June and then put it on the back end of the rent. Or you could talk to your landlord about deferring April's rent 100% because that's the biggest impact that we've had, and then take May and June again at 50%, and then spreading that out starting in maybe 2021 from January to December. So spreading that repayment back over 12 months, that might be something to do. The next expense that we've got from a small business perspective is our TMI costs, and that's property taxes and insurance. I don't think there's going to be a lot of help because the government has certainly put so many packages together. And the last one is going to be our operational expenses, which is taking all of the other expenses we've got. We've got some downtime right now. And I like what Lewis has alluded to, that this is a time we need to start budgeting and looking at our cash flow statements, looking at our profit and loss. And really, we've got the time right now, which we never do when we're running our business, which is to sit down and start doing some forecasting and start doing some educational components. So the silver lining a little bit is rather than wait for this to get started, why don't we start right now and really get through the numbers and run that side of the operation? food for thought. I think that restaurants are going to need instant relief because we're a lot of the lifeblood. We have a lot of restaurants and a lot of independent restaurants, and it's a big part of the economy when you start taking the 10 to 30 employees that we have and what we're creating in the local economy here. I would like to see the government provide small business loans through the chartered banks. They've got a small business advisors at each of the banks. It would be really neat for them to put together some very low interest loans over a longer term, maybe a 5-year as an alternative. Again, if you're going to be going into the banks, you're going to need to be organized. You're going to need to have a business plan. You're going to have your cash flow analysis done, your profit and loss. But that might be something that they're going to be putting together, so get ready for it. A creative idea for small businesses when we do get back up and running and cash flow, the hiccup with restaurants in particular, the cash that we're making today, if we were open on today's sales, are paying for products that we received 45 to 30 days ago. So we live in a little bit different of a world that we're paying for things that we've received a month ago on today's sales. So maybe there's a way that you can really kick off a marketing plan for selling gift certificates to your regular clients where you could sell 3 $100 gift certificates. You could sell them 3 100s, but give them $120, 320, so it would equal $360, and ask them that they come in during August to use one of them, September to use one, and October to use one, because you're going to need a little bit of cash flow coming in, heading into the next opening that we're heading towards. So those are my roundabout ideas, and I'm hoping to get some questions on it.
Yeah, very good, Rodney. Kyle's got a question for you. Go ahead, Kyle.
I don't have a question, but you were talking about some financial support for business. I just want to point out that one of the things that was passed as well is that there's going to be a business credit availability program through BDC that's going to provide $10 billion that businesses can apply for. I don't know what the application process exactly is going to be for businesses, but the government is adding a lot more liquidity through BDC and Export Development Canada, EDC, for medium and small businesses. And once I have all of those details as well, I want to make sure small businesses know how to access those through my website. So I don't know how quickly people can access it or how much they can apply for, but the government is giving some additional loan products for small business.
So that means sorry about that. There I am, and unmuted. Kyle, great words. Thank you. I think the takeaway that I'm getting from all of the government assistance that if you're not financially ready with your statement and understanding this, and you've got the time to do it, when you get in queue, when you get in the line, they're going to send you back when you go to apply for things if you're not ready. So the suggestion that I'm making is right now you've got the time, the energy, put in the effort. Let's get our numbers together and let's get ready for some relief, some help. But if we're not ready, when you get there, you're going to be frustrated again because they're going to send you away and say, please go back and get your numbers because we can't help if we don't understand what we're helping. So thank you, Kyle, for jumping in there.
And that's great advice.
Great, thank you very much, Your Worship. And Rodney, I guess one of the questions that has come to my particular desk has been some of the restaurants who, of course, we know under the essential services, restaurants can convert to a takeout type of operation. Have you heard of any difficulties here locally with some of those that have had some problems converting in a very short period of time to that type of delivery?
I've actually heard, thank you very much on the question. I've heard two ways that some of the people are having difficulty converting into the takeout. I think that's what you're speaking about. Can we transition from in-house service to quickly to takeout? I've heard some success service stories on the takeout, and I've heard some that have had difficulty about doing it. I think It depends on your location, depends on the type of service. If you've decided to close, I probably wouldn't regenerate it and try to capture the market right now because it's being shared. But I have heard some success stories on takeouts for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions?
We do. Yep.
Lewis, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you. I just want to comment further on, what Rodney and I have been talking about, taking the time to plan now. The BDC has an exceptionally good website, and it has on it planning tools like cash flows and business modeling, et cetera. I'd encourage you to go on the BDC website and take a look at some of these tools while you're at home and have the time to do so. I think the BDC will be the key to the government assistance. Kyle, I'm speaking with respect to the hope that the BDC will actually get into the business of operating lines, not just term loans, and not restricting the type of businesses they can lend to. Because there's going to be an awful lot of the bank institutions, the normal banks, will not be increasing the operating lines as they need to. And through the BDC, the government can have what we call bulges to operating lines provided for 12 to 18 months and then termed out over another 2-3 year period to eliminate. That's something I'm hoping that you can bring to the government and suggest something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are great points.
A good, I just wanted to comment one more on top of that too. You're speaking of the BDC, but also TD Bank, BMO, Scotia, Royal, they have great small business advisors, and they have online tools right now that literally as soon as it's over, you could head online right now, and they've got a wealth of information for small business owners of how to do forecasting, how to do a cash flow statement. Also, if you have Excel at home right now and you're at home, if you type that into Microsoft, into Excel, there's planning tools right there. So I really want to encourage that the tools are readily available, always have. You couldn't pick a better time to get going on it. This is the time to do it. So if BDC seems a bit out of your realm or you're not sure about it, start reaching out to your small business advisor because they're there to help and they're awesome.
Now, if I can, just one more point there. You don't have to just focus on the BDC or the banks. There's many alternative lenders out there. They might be a little more expensive, but you've got companies that will factor your receivables. There are companies that will do purchase order financing. Credit unions, they're a great alternative to banks in many cases. So, start exploring, what other institutions and other lending facilities you can find.
I'm reading from both Rodney and Lewis's presentations today was this is a time to press the reset button on your business, to get the planning done properly, to educate yourself in this new reality that we have. And if you hadn't had the time to put the right business plan together, you've got it now. Let's get it done so you can be successful going forward. Is that correct, gentlemen?
Absolutely, Sandy. I have a fond saying that fire burns wood, destroys wood, but fire also hardens steel. This is a time for all the business owners to just choose whether they're wood or steel and basically start planning and have that resilience.
And one more thing, Mayor, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor Sandy Brown, if I could. I started off in 1987. We've been through this is the 7th, 6 interesting times. So Black Monday, Black Friday. We've had one of the worst day crashes in the market. My reason for saying this in the .com, we had the subprime mortgages failures that happened, is that each time it felt like it was the final. It felt like Chicken Little. It felt like the biggest time, but yet you came out stronger on the other end. So the encouragement is we're going to make it through this. Small business people are amazingly resilient. Get ready because there's another side to this coin coming. We just need to be ready for it. So please, please get ready.
Good. I really thank you for that, Rod and Lewis. I think the silver lining and the uplifting message that you're trying to deliver to some of our people that are really worried about the future, but there is another side to this, and we are going to come out of it together. So very good. Any other questions to Rodney before we move on to our next panelist? No. Okay. So Now we're moving on to Allison Shield. Allison is the general manager of our local BIA. Allison, you're in daily contact with many of our small businesses and property owners in the downtown core. Even before the COVID-19 crisis, bricks and mortar retailers were being hit with the Amazon effect and other issues within retailing. Can you come up with some of the issues that are facing our BIA members, and maybe if you can offer some help or solutions for them as well? Allison.
Yes, hi. I think the biggest issue right now is I think business owners will, now that the new announcement has come out today from the federal government that they will have access as sole proprietors to get some funding through the emergency funding that's available now, the universal funding essentially. So that's good news to them. That's a very small drop in the bucket that might help pay their home bills, but not their rent at their businesses. So that's going to be a real challenge for them. Accessing loans, that might be kind of easier said than done for some of these small mom and pop businesses. They're probably very concerned that they might not be able to pay their loans back 6 months from now, once things get rolling, or a year from now. So it is going to be a real challenge. They really do need to look at their entire business model. As Lewis and Rodney both said, it's a time for them now to really look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how they can simplify things, change things up, access new markets. It's not so easy for a hairdresser or a physiotherapist who's had to close their shops right now and can't do anything at the moment except try to figure out new ways to get new clients and how to streamline their processes.
One of the things I was thinking about, Allison, was those retailers who have not dabbled in online sales. This is a time to educate themselves. Many small business people are just running from morning to night just to get their daily business operations handled, and haven't had the time. So again, another silver lining here with a break in the time to educate themselves and try to set up online, because this is the future going forward for every retail business. So thanks, Allison.
Yeah, so sorry, if I can just mention, so there was a Digital Main Street grant that was made available to small businesses, and specifically to downtown, small downtown businesses, and lots of small businesses did take advantage of that. The grant is now over, so we're hoping the government is going to extend or renew that grant opportunity. But those the actual program, the resources from that program are still available to small businesses to help them to digitize themselves in a way so they can sell online and change the way they're doing business. So we encourage all small business owners to take advantage of the Digital Main Street resources, even if they can't take advantage of the grant right now. So that was a great program, and we really hope it's going to be renewed.
Great. I hope going forward, Allison, that the town of Orangeville Town Council and the BIA to work together to come up with some incentive programs to get people back into our retail environment and into our restaurants. And I know, speaking with General Manager of Corporate Services, Andrea McKinney, the last couple of days, that we're getting close to our new Orangeville mobile app. Hopefully most people in town will be able to download that and have that, and it'll be a great way for us to communicate and to get discounts, discount programs out to the public as everybody relaunches, hopefully in the next couple of months. So any questions for Alice? Yes, Councillor Andrews. Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much, Allison, for your detailed update to our business community and small business operators here within the downtown core. A question is pertaining to any of those businesses within the BIA or possibly even outside of the BIA who may have reached out to you to get some clarification on what is defined as, I call it, the gray areas of essential services. Did you get any inquiries from the business community itself?
Yes, actually, we're getting inquiries right now for small business owners that want to deliver retail product. So say, for example, a bookseller wants to deliver some books directly to someone's front door, drop it off and walk away. We're not sure if that's actually allowed or not. If they're the only ones in their stores collecting the products and then packaging them up and delivering them themselves, is that allowed right now? So that's our biggest question, and we don't have an answer to that, but we're hoping to get one.
Well, prior to the live webcast of this particular event, I was able to have some information passed on. Both the mayor and I received this, and this was from our manager of economic development and culture. The province has launched a toll-free number, and for those that may be watching online this afternoon, and I know that this information will be posted on the town's website as well, the toll-free number, and I'll just recite that for anybody who's watching, is 1-888-444 3659, and this will provide information to Ontario businesses who have questions about the recent emergency order to close at-risk workplaces, and also hopefully to provide some clarification to the gray areas that a number of businesses reached out to myself, other members of council, and also, of course, to the mayor and town staff. So thank you very much, Alison, for your information.
Great. Any other questions for Alison from the panel? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along. Joe Sammet. Joe, you spend your work days evaluating the financial strength of individuals, families, and businesses, and working with lenders to help people achieve their dream of residential or commercial property ownership. What are some of the things the public can do to help them through this, or the government can do to help them through this? And should the federal government relax some lending criteria as opposed to leaving it just up to the lenders? I know Kyle has mentioned that there is some backing from the BDC, but on the mortgage side, I'm hearing mixed messages that that it's very difficult to get through and get these deferrals organized. So, Joe, if you could weigh in, please, sir.
Thank you very much, Sandy, and thank you to all the panelists who are joining in today, because this is a lot of valuable information. Where I'd like to start is by saying that we, as we all know, are in unprecedented times. We've never experienced anything like this. And to a couple of the panelists' suggestions earlier about preparing and getting ready and geared up for the recovery of this, that's what we all can look forward to. We're all hoping that this doesn't last as long as some are saying, but the key thing is a learning lesson is to be had here and be prepared going forward. But as far as my role on this panel as a mortgage professional, what I can say to start is that unfortunately there is a lot of or a lack of information coming down the channels, and what information is coming down is being misrepresented in a lot of cases. There's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of misunderstanding. There are individuals believing that the banks are being mandated to defer mortgage payments for as long as 6 months, when in fact it's not a government mandate, it's a government suggestion, and it's left up to each and every individual lender to choose whether or not they're going to implement some sort of a deferral program. And most importantly, it is exactly that. It's a deferral program. It's not a skipped mortgage payment or a missed mortgage payment program. And it's actually open to the bank's discretion as to whether or not an individual qualifies. So my suggestion to anybody that is considering the deferral program, first and foremost, if you have the means and the ability to continue making your mortgage payments, please do so. Don't clog the phone lines trying to find out about the deferral program, because it's only making it more difficult for those that absolutely need the deferral because they can't get through. I've heard many stories that people are calling their respective lenders and they're on hold for 3 and 4 hours only to be hung up on at the last minute by an accident, an error, an incorrectly pressed button, and they have to start all over again. So if you can continue making your mortgage payments, do so, because it's not a given right to have your mortgage payments deferred. As I mentioned, it's at the discretion of the lender. So you have to help demonstrate some hardship, the inability to pay in order to be eligible. And like I said, it's up to the bank's individual discretion as to whether or not they will defer. Some banks are discussing up to 6 months. Other lenders are doing it on a 1 month interval and reviewing it month after month. So again, it's up to your individual lenders. Also, if you don't, again, I can't stress enough, if you don't fall into this distress category or have the inability to pay, please do not clog the lines of the lenders. Just leave that to those that actually need the assistance. If you are eligible to have your mortgage payments deferred, the key thing to keep in mind is that it is available to you if you qualify, so most certainly benefit by it. take advantage of it. I don't like to say take advantage because that conjures up that we're doing something wrong. Well, right now we need as much help as we can get. So if you do qualify for that deferral program, most certainly do it, ask about it. It does not impact your credit negatively. It's a deferral, not a skipped payment, not a missed payment. It's not as though you bounced a check. So absolutely look into it if you absolutely positively need it. As I mentioned, the deferrals are being discussed right now month to month or to a maximum of 6 months. Communication. One of the panelists earlier had mentioned, don't bury your head in the sand, pardon me, and don't neglect to make your payments and then expect forgiveness afterwards. Make communication the first and foremost thing that you do with your lender, whether it be a mortgage lender, credit card, line of credit, business operating lines and things like that. Make contact with your lender and let them know that you're having hard times. The lenders are not here to put you out of business. That's not the role of any of our institutions or the government. The institutions want to work with you because I would imagine that if they don't work with their stakeholders, their clients, the cleanup mess for them is going to be a lot more severe down the road if they don't cooperate during these hard times. So make communication first and foremost in your plans. Deferred mortgage payments, refinancing your home, consolidating debt through the equity in your home. We've all had the luxury of benefiting by appreciation in values of homes nowadays. So by all means, benefit by that by doing a refinance or consider a refinance, consolidate your debt, take out an operating line of credit. For those of you that didn't do the planning that some of the panelists talked about earlier, take out some sort of a line of credit on your property that you can use in the future for opportunities that may come up or to weather storms like this again if they ever rear their ugly head. Make sure that you're planned or you're prepared and that you have a mortgage that's going to be structured right for you. I guess really the only thing I want to talk about is make sure again that you seek professional advice. Rodney, I believe, talked about speaking to business planners at the or business advisors at the banks. The only unfortunate thing with that right now is that I don't think there are any business advisors working right now. There's a lot of people that you may be able to get through working remotely, but I believe their accessibility right now might be a little bit limited. So be patient. The one thing I can say is what I've been, with all the calls I've been fielding the last 2 weeks, is we're in this now for, I believe, about 10 days. We're now in a much different state than we were when it first started. So there's a lot of new things being developed, a lot of new things being discovered day to day, and there's going to be a lot of better information coming down the channels as time goes on. So be patient, keep those lines of communication open with your lenders, and we will all get through this. Again, to echo the sentiments of the other two panelists, be prepared, get ready, and be motivated to turn this into something positive when the market does turn around, because we will recover from this.
Very good. Thank you very much, Joe. I had one further comment. I know we talked a couple of days ago about this, Joe, but there is another, hybrid deferral option, and that is maybe to ask your lender if you can just pay your interest payment. I think that would be an easier ask for the lender. Postponing the principal portion of your mortgage, really that leaves that principal amount of money in the payee's hand, and it does not injure the bank in any way because their operating profit or operating money and profit is still being collected through the interest. So what do you think of that, Joe? Is that an option that lenders might consider?
That's a great idea. And I think that, again, keeping the lines of communication open with the lender, if you can get through and have that discussion and have that dialogue with somebody on the other end, they're going to do everything they possibly can to help you get through this. And if deferring interest or principal payments or whatever the combination thereof that they're able to do they're willing to entertain it, then by all means benefit by anything that you can get from the lenders at this time, because we need their help to get through this. They need our help to get through this. So we're all in this together. And I guess to that point though, Sandy, the one thing to keep in mind is lenders are having the same trouble you are. Business people are having the same troubles we are. We're all in the exact same boat at the exact same time. These are unprecedented times. So if you can get that conversation, that dialogue happening, then by all means, there will be a meeting of the minds, I'm sure, and there will be solutions.
Right. Great. Thank
There,
you very
sorry,
much.
one more thing, Sandy. There's
Yes.
a list of lender phone numbers for those of you that do need to get in touch with your lender. Reach out to me, and I'm not trying to make a selfish plug here, but if you want a list of lender phone numbers, reach out to my website at www.mortgagegate.ca, and you'll see a list. And there's actually a COVID-19 plan within which all the lenders' phone numbers and emails are listed. So it's a quick reference if you do happen to need it.
Very good. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you
very much. So we've gone around the horn here to all of our panelists. You know, all the discussion that's gone on. I'm wondering if there's any questions amongst our panelists that anybody would like to ask. And then I'd like to wrap up our session today, maybe with each one of us making a final statement and hopefully an uplifting message to those that are watching. But any questions internally? Joe Andrews. Go ahead.
Great, thank you very much, Your Worship. This would be posed to Rodney, again, your close connection to the food service industry in our community. And you did reference some of the points about those that are still trying to figure out if they can end up supporting a takeout type of environment. The question is pertaining to perishable goods. Has a message gone out to maybe support our food banking? Again, we know that there's a best before date, but if you have a business operating in our community who just feels that they won't be able to use that particular food product, have they been maybe instructed to possibly pass it on to the food bank?
Great question, Joe. And in the circle of influence of the ones that I'm working with from a coaching side, absolutely that's been done. All perishables have been looked after. Fridges and freezers have been cleaned and scrubbed and ready for the next mode. But yes, a lot of food got donated. So yeah, good.
Any other questions from panelists? Kyle, yes, go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to quickly add a couple of final thoughts here for everyone. Number one, we have federally approved temporary foreign workers in the farming sector to still be able to come and help farmers during the growing season. I know we have a lot of farmers in Dufferin-Caledon, so they will be subjected to a mandatory 14-day quarantine when they arrive in case they are symptomatic for COVID-19, but we are still going to process temporary foreign worker applications in the farming sector. And just with respect to myself and my office, the office is closed to walk-in traffic, but we are serving constituents both by email and by telephone. Phone numbers 519-941-1832. And I said my email address before, kyle.cback@parle.gc.ca. All of our contacts on my website. We're here, my staff and I, to help in any way we can. We're trying to have a service standard right now of returning phone calls and emails within 24 hours. We are getting an incredibly high volume, so I'm just asking people, please be patient. We will absolutely get back to you and try and help you in any way we can.
Thank you, Kyle. Okay, so let's just go around. Kyle, that was a good wrap-up statement for you. Let's go with Joe Sammet. Joe, can you kind of tie this in a little knot on this for us? You're muted, Joe.
Okay, I'm back in the room.
There you go.
Again, the only thing I can say very much echoes Kyle's comments. We too are available to field any calls, questions, concerns, and we'll do everything we possibly can to help anybody that reaches through to us. Our staff is available. They're working remotely. We're doing that for the safety of ourselves and the public. But we are most certainly available. It's confusing times, it's interesting times, and for some it's very scary times. So again, I can't stress enough just to remember that we're all in this together. This is not something that you as an individual did wrong. This is global. So just be patient and we will get through this. There are resources designed and available to help each and every one of us as much as they can and as much as they're designed to help. But be positive and one day at a time, and hopefully we get out of this much sooner rather than later.
Thank you. So panelists, as I call upon you, if you can make sure your microphone's unmuted. Let's go with Lewis. Lewis, final statement, sir.
Well, just to echo what many of us have already said, you know, the economy is typically a very cyclical thing. We're going through a cycle now that's partially organic and partially artificial, created by the government lockdowns, but it will pass. I think we're going to be all stronger for it. Do your planning, and I think just keep your optimism up. There's lots of opportunities coming.
Thank you, Louis. Marlene, could you give a final statement, please?
I'd just like to say that my staff is available, same as we always have been, remotely or in the office through email and telephone. And worry and stress and fear is a common thread we're seeing here for all of us right now, and it weakens our immune system. So we need to try and find the best we can in this situation and spend some time with our family, be kind and supportive, and we're all in this together, and we'll be stronger as we work through this in the days ahead. And I'm glad to be part of this talk show today so that we can share our thoughts and our worries around what the town of Orangeville and our surrounding communities are facing. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, Marlene. Well said. Let's go with Rodney. If you could unmute there, sir.
Yep. Okay, so my closing would be, we have these come to us every decade. We've had 14 of them since 1946. The shortest last 45 days, the longest last 546 days, which makes it about a year and a half for us to get in and out of this. So this is not new. The big difference between others and this one, it's always been economic anxiety. And I'm going to reach out to the small business owners and to reach out to your staff. This is more of a social anxiety because of the difference and because of the lockdown, and it's the impact. When it's economic, we tend to overlook it a little bit. This one's more social. So just make sure when you're reaching out to people on the phone or texting them, ask them how they're doing, check in, because this one's a little bit different in that aspect. We're going to come through this. We're resilient. Entrepreneurs are awesome people. I appreciate the time being here, and wish you all well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Allison, would you like to weigh in here, please?
Yes, hi. So I just wanted to remind our small business owners that we're here to help support you through the COVID-19 crisis, and we're planning for when we come out and the post-COVID-19 world and what that means for small businesses. And we want to hear from you and how we can support you during and after the fact. So that's number one. And we also wanted to remind you that as everyone has said, we are resilient, and the smaller you are, the more flexible you can be, as long as you open your mind to possibilities and take the time to plan now while you can. So that's our biggest takeaway, I think, from today, is just use the time, plan, think about things in a different way, and we're all going to get through it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Allison. Councillor Andrews, one final thought, sir.
Yes, very quickly, Your Worship. I just wanted to again thank all of the panel recipients here who have taken the time out of their schedule to be and candid. Resiliency and optimism is certainly apparent in what you've said. I just wanted to share a couple of things again to our small business community, medium, as well as some of the larger ones in our community. The province has asked for manufacturers of any sort, business owners, if they happen to have any product that they might be able to provide to our healthcare system, such as ventilators, swabs, gowns, and gloves. Not to say that we have a shortage, but they're looking at long term. They want to make sure that this is definitely provided to those that may need it. I know that the mayor is probably going to wrap up on some of the points that affect our business owners in the community, such as the waiving of fees and interest rates. I should say interest related to late payments and other things, and hopefully you'll be able to do that. But I just wanted to remind again a number for those of you that may have some difficulty in defining the gray areas that the provincial government identified in the essential services. Again, I'll repeat that phone number one more time. And again, I appreciate the EDC office for providing that information. The number is 1-888-444-3659. Other information is also available on the town website for any of our small business operators, business owners, and members of the community. So thank you. Be safe.
Right, Joe. Thank you very much. So, it was a theme throughout this that you know, all of the companies and our government is all concerned about this. There's relaxation of penalties and interest for many things, including property taxes here in Orangeville and our water and electricity bills. Marlene mentioned insurance companies are giving relaxation, and of course the lenders realize the gravity of this and are going to be coming to the plate with deferral programs. And I want to thank Mr. Seaback for being part of this today. I know he's got some important business to do. The federal government is going to be integral in this, and Mr. Seaback and the Conservative Party are, you know, we're pushing back on a couple of things as this has gone through. But I think, you know, from my standpoint, both Premier Ford and Prime Minister Trudeau have done a good job to this point in navigating these uncharted waters. And at this time, you know, we need to kind of put aside the partisan politics and pull together and work together for the good of everyone. So one final thought I was thinking about last night as that $2 trillion the package was passed in the Capitol in Washington, and somebody rushing into Mr. Trump's office at midnight and saying, "Well, we got the deal together," and him saying, "Well, great, where are we going to get that money from?" And they would say, "Well, we'll have to borrow it from China." So that's a joke, everybody. So, but there may be some truth there. So I thought I'd end this off with a little bit of humor. I hope that everybody keeps a stiff upper lip through this. We got some excellent commentary today with some great advice from some very experienced people. And again, I want to thank everybody that was involved today. Particularly want to thank our IT department here at the town of Orangeville for putting this together. I think hope the broadcast went okay. It certainly will be rebroadcast on YouTube for others to watch in the near future. Thank you so much, and we'll sign off now. Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, everyone.
Now we have to log in, we can do this more often.
Yeah.